Joining me today, I have the very wonderful Anouk De Blieck. She is multilingual, she's highly capable and extremely experienced. And I have got the pleasure of having her with me to talk about executive assistants. I wondered if I could ask you a few questions off the back of your experience with executive assistants and working with them.
Well, first of all, I'm very happy to be here, and it's such an important topic and such an important audience. So really happy to contribute. I just want to take one step back and say, why is an EA so important, and why is it such an important role for an executive? And then you think about it, as an executive, your role is to use your strategic thinking power, right? Your role is to use your insights, your wisdom, create value. The thing is that in today's world and in today's work, there's so much that can get into the way of using that insights and that wisdom, because you get distracted by so many different things. And I think that's where an EA comes in, right? Is she's the person, or he could be the person that really provides you that headspace to create that time, to really think, to react, to be strategic. And they say that some research that even 8 hours in a week, an EA easily could take away for you to be more productive. So I think there's no doubt that it is so important to have that person. And that's when I see what you look for it. It's a partner. It's a partner for helping you to be effective. And that means they represent your office. They represent your brand. They represent the organization. That's one. The second thing is that, of course, they're professional and they have high EQ and all the things you mentioned. But they're also a bit of a culture setter, right? So they define what type of environment you want to create. So that's the second thing. And the third thing is that I think that in an ever-changing world, I think adaptability is extremely important. Is have someone be there with you to drive value in an ever-changing world. So that's what I kind of would look for in an EA.
For you, what experience do you like to see on a CV?
So I think there's three things for me that are important that I would look for. Is first of all, do they have the technical capability, right? And that's just the basic pieces around running the office, doing the administration and all of that. But then I would look at, have they done this in an environment that is, for example, quite demanding, that is culturally different, that has gone through change? Because eventually they need to be able to use that technical capability with a complex audience, right? I think they need to be able to juggle a lot of priorities. So I think these are things I think the first thing to do is they need to be able to do the job, but in a complex environment. The second thing for me is the mindset. What drives them? How do they work with others? So it's less of the hardware, but more of the software, right? And are they someone that learns, that plays in a team, that has that EQ, that is resourceful? So really having someone that kind of leans in and kind of really goes with that role in the most, I would say, efficient way. And then I think the third thing is that they can have the hardware, the software, but then it's about passion, right? It's about how do they go beyond that role? How do they look for other things to contribute? And so it's this question about, dealing with extra activities, dealing with setbacks. Again, it's about operating in that, I would say, ever-changing environment. So I think that passion is crucial to make, in fact, your role a very special role and a very unique role. So I think these three things for me are really important. And I like to look at that when I look at a CV, and the experience sometimes talks about, right? Diversity is key in all of this, Nancy.
Yeah. I think that's key. Someone who's able to sort of think ahead and really go with that and make it work. So I appreciate that. And how have your previous EAs created impact for you? What are some of the things that they've done?
Yeah, so I have had the privilege, right, to work with amazing people, both ladies and gentlemen, right? And I think every EA is unique. They bring a very different flavor to the role, because they're all individuals, they're all humans, and they all have their own personality. What I do have noticed, is all of them that have been really successful is, first of all, they make your office runs smoothly, right? And so there's no worries about what's happening, what needs to be done, are things according to plan? Because eventually how you run your office, how you run your team is a reflection on your brand. So I think that's the first thing that I think they've done extremely well. And they make it work in whatever environment there is, right? And it helps set priorities and all of that. So that is one thing. The other thing is that I think they're very very close to the organization, and so they're kind of also a bit of the eyes and ears of what happens, and they can take a bit of a pulse of the organization as well. And especially when you're in a role like myself in the past, being in as a chief people officer or CHRO, it's about the people, right? It's about the culture. So I think they're in a position where they can get the insights, they can give feedback, but they also can be in an environment where they can solve problems right before they emerge, and they can kind of be in there as well. So I think that's the second part. And the third part is that these have been people that want to make things better. How do you bring simplicity to complexity? How do you improve things? How do you make things easier, right? And how do you make things better? So that continuous improvement, I think, is really important. And I think each of the EAs that I've worked with, they have a special place in my heart, because eventually they have made me successful. They have made me a better person.
I was talking to a client who's based in Singapore, and she's actually the head of HR, and she was referring to an EA that I placed with the senior MD of the business, and sort of just chatting away and asking how the lovely EA that I placed with him it was going, and she said, it's amazing. She has unlocked a totally new MD. The person that we're seeing now is completely different to what he was before, because he has so much trust in her that he is just a different person. Things that he had to do before, he doesn't have to, because she's taken care of. So, I really appreciate what you're saying, and no doubt your EA's got a lot from you as well.
Well, I hope so.
My final question, I guess, given your immense experience covering so many different areas globally, as well as different organizations, do you have any career advice that you would give executive assistants, both experienced and less experienced? Is there anything that you would say to them that could sort of support them on their career path?
Well, I think first of all, I would say that they're in a unique position, right? When you're like supporting an executive, you're in a unique position to learn about the business, to deal with senior executives. You see the politics, you see the bad, the good, and the ugly.
Yes.
You learn so much, and your view is so immense, because you have that overall holistic view of the organization. So I would see this role as a bit of a stepping stone. I see it as a role that can help you grow, that can help you discover what you're good at, what you love to do, where you can make an impact. So I see a number of the EAs starting into those roles, and they become into a role that can make them a trusted advisor, but also can kickstart their career. So I would say to all the EAs, I see this role as not the end state. It's the beginning to something new. My advice is, have the aspiration to grow, have the aspiration to lean in, have confidence in yourself, and don't underestimate the unique opportunity, if you desire, to grow in an organization and beyond.
I love that, Anouk, and no doubt, they've been extremely fortunate to have you as their support, the person that they're supporting.
Well, again, I think it's a pleasure to have this conversation, and I would say, the sky's the limit. Just a big thanks to everyone doing this type of job. It is making life of executives so much easier, so much productive. And I would say, don't underestimate the role you have in making that impact. You're driving huge impact. So thank you, Zara, for having me.
And look, just such a pleasure. All the EAs, if they manage to listen to this, I'm sure they'll be sitting back and feeling very proud of themselves.
Okay.
Perfect. Thanks so much, Anouk.
Thanks so much. Speak next time. Bye-bye.